Foiil ar ascaigh Grade Academy an cuairse scríochta or levéal don ordleist. Seo I capital is séideag bunaithe ar a hignal term agus is cuid den ábhar bhreise í. Okay. So seo I páirte hían agus be mi ag féchant ar chúra an díormhaisnéis agus an achrama den díormhaisnéis. So an na rudí tá tábhachtach sa díormhaisnéis seo. So chúra, achrama, I bord a dó be mi ag féchant ar grán, tíimí, na carta ar stíl agus críoch agus ceis na scrúdathe freisin. So den céad rud, so chúra an díormhaisnéis. So rugach Mike Deneen ó sé ag arachán ag néaltach círaí sa bhliain 1940 a héan. So he was born in Carrigon in the Kerry Gaeltacht in 1941. So leabhar seo in sin Mike Deneen scéal bheatha. So in this book, Mike Deneen tells his life story. It's leabhar dear ground for it, so it's a very funny book. Agus léirítear go sálar and it's shown clearly. Thug sé ceann na gcónaí de chainte na daoine, agus go háirithe de feith an grain sa chaint. Okay, so he really uses the talk of people, especially humour, in his speaking. Rud a hagan go loidir sa leabhar seo, so it's something that really comes to the forefront of this book. Scríobh Mike Deneen mar leabharíonn sé, so he writes as he speaks, agus is minic a thugann sé cooler breover than gach aon scéal sa leabhar. So it's often that he gives us a really lively background to each story in the book. So, achrama ar an scéal, so the summary, capital a héan go dtí capital a hocht. So, capital a héan an scrisise ar an luan. So, lá bháin bhí Mike Deneen ó sé ag dul ar scoil don céadúir, so he was going to school for the first time. Man for níidir dachad de seach de bhí ann, so it was September 1947. Chuaigh sé ann lena bháthir, he went with his mom. Nuair dairg sé, chuir sé bríse dlana Selena air, so when he woke up, he put a clean pants and a shirt on. Ceap sé go raibh sé dul gotí an siopa. He thought he was going to the shop, ach bhí sé dul ar scoil, but he was going to school. Ní raibh sé sásta bhí seo, he was not happy about that. Ach go bham, tom róbheag chun dul ar scoil, I'm too young to go to school. Tar éis tamil after a while, bhí cuairde nua déint aige, so he'd made new friends. Tugan las anam ar gachtain is scoil bhailíon mhórig. So everyone was given a nickname in the school. Báisteach suit ar bhaith Deneen, so they gave him Shoot. Sin las anam a bhí ar ahar chumas, that was his father's nickname as well. Ní raibh angel sarang, so there was no angel in the class. Bhí brúin ar siúl. There was a brawl on sa scoil beag nach gachló in school nearly every day. Lá bháin bhí traded ar Mike agus buachail eile, so one day there was a fight between Mike and another boy. Bhí an bhirrtacha ag bualadh iad féin, so they were both hitting each other. Níor bhuail Mike nor bhí sé ar an talamh, so Mike never hit him when he was on the floor. Tháinig an múntóir amach sa clós agus ar bualadh, so a teacher came out to the yard and she was raging. Fécin iad atá arbh, is sibh fluch sa lach. Okay, so look at the two of you, you're both dirty. Around Thig dimmered siad pell, so during the summer they played football. Bhí cluichí úntacha acu, they had great games. Dimmer siad ar an bóthar, so they played on the road. Bhí clocha ann mar chúlaí. Okay, so they had Rocks as the goalkeeper. Ní raibh aon carna ar an móthar ag an am, so there was no cars on the road at the time. Ní raibh aon roiiteoir nó mar lína ag na cluichí, so they had no referee or linesman. Ní bhíoh fiú lán chúlaí nó lán tosaí ach bhí cúlbóir ann. Okay, so there wasn't even a full forward or full back, but there was a goalie. Rig gach den a timp na porca, so everyone ran around the park. Agus is minic a bhí argóintí ann mother leis an score, so there was often arguments when it came to the score. I gabhad le dó agus an tá an cigre tagtar. So tháinig an cigre uair sa bhliain, so an inspector came once a year, de gná I mína sauna, usually in November. Bhí na daltaí an seomar go léir glanna, so all the students had to clean the classroom. Bhí an glantaán tábhacht, so the cleaning was important, ach bhí na ceachtainna álam de glan bhaíohar níos tábhachtaí, but the lessons you'd learn off by heart were more important. Bhí an múntóir an a nerví seach, so the teacher was very nervous. Agus seoladh na daltaí amach sa clós, and the students were sent out to the yard. Bhí áthas ar Mike toisc go raibh sauce breisiacha, so Mike was delighted because he needed a break. It's true an átógadh an cigre gach aon lá, so he said it's a pity that the inspector doesn't come every day. Isteach lo tar éis tamlín, so they went inside after a while. Cá an cigre spéiclí ar a shrine, so the inspector wore glasses on his nose. Thosaigh sé a cur ceisna ar na daltaí, he started questioning the students. Chuir sé ceistre chalín ó bhaile an locht ag ar dús, so he questioned one girl. Firstly, Scalora den kids go by, so she was a great student. Dragar she kesh fi na hather, she answered a question about her father. An sin vir vai kesh raggart fi mo law atá I mi February, so then Mike had to answer a question about how many days were in February. Fi she saw Selena Raggart, he was happy with his answer. An sin vi Inchin O'Griffin kesh raggart, so then it was Vincent O'Griffin's time to answer his question. Hepper Fragger Carter word, he failed to give a correct answer. Bhí an atmosphere teanasach agus bhí nóir an múntóir, so there was a tense atmosphere and the teacher was embarrassed. Ní bhuair siad éon obervalia an ihe sin. They got no homework that day. Bhí siad den ósig na Tincéirí campáil in achan na scoile dear an or, so the Tinkers would camp next to the school at the end of autumn. Cúi siad ó cheacht go teach ag díal rodí mar hampla saucepan pitúir agus scafléirí. So they would go from house to house selling things like saucepans, pitchers, and bits and bobs. Rinne na maná an cócroachta written lei, so the women did the cooking during the day. Lá avon be ban an tinker ag roast the rodagan ar an dinner oscailte, so one day a tinker woman was roasting something on an open fire. Bhí Mike agus chuir de scoil ag vacant earhí, so Mike and his school friends were looking at her. Bhí bullet jassig teachtó mar crail, so there was a lovely smell coming from the fire. Iscéig teachtó íoch le gach duine again, so water pouring from everyone's teeth. Rug buchel one piece of fair agus caiise, so a boy got a piece of grass and threw it. He chased off the harpon roast in a dinkeri, so it fell into the roasting dish of the tinker, agus hit an beer and talav, and the food fell on the ground. Vina buchli galer idribloid, so all the boys were in trouble. You're in it anya ke a cha an shaheen. Nobody mentioned who drew, or knew who threw the piece of grass. Agus for gacht in a carabula on master, so everyone got 4 hits from the master. Fek meet scale groundver sa capital, so we see a funny story in this chapter. Nor occur an vashers kesher buchel. So when the female teacher asked the boys, agus fleis gacht in a mak and everyone started laughing. Fi idir noir agus fair ger mastress, so she was embarrassed and also angry. Rug she grimer chlusa, she grabbed his ears agus hug she ide baildo and gave him a lecture. Bhí gach in a ciún galore agla go bhaid ní spúnog an cóca trasna chrum na lava. So everyone was quiet because they were afraid that they would get a spoon across their knuckles. Capal 3 an bhahantíocht. So sna cuidaí ní raibh telefíse géin is Gaeltacht, so nobody had a TV in the Gaeltacht. Bhí go radio sa far ásta. Ceanna bhána Jack Fike, so there was only 2 radios in the parish and one was in Mike's house. The on radio come more the telefish ach bachumalo. Okay, so the radio was as big as a TV, but they didn't care. He didn't care. You have more on Sima cost na Chlorica, so he had no interest in the programs. Mar vishi las barely than quit the smoke, because most of them were in English. They stick the hishmahori lesh and look, so the parents would listen to the news. We on a crack cost, so they great crack, nor vi an Cather Shul. When the football was on, go horha on All Ireland, especially the All Ireland. We can take lawn gabor or fad the goine lawn All Ireland, so their house would be full of people the day of the All Ireland. We did a few max a gordine a geisha lesh and leha. People would be even out in the garden listening to the game. Vi Mihal o heherha krela nidlehi, so Mihal would be broadcasting the games. It's minnig a hit a her vike in a colin or vishe geisha lesh and note there on radio, so it's often that Mike's dad would actually fall asleep when he was listening to the news on the radio. Bhí agla hu galéir on radio a chur as, agla go caiiledís an stáisiún, so he was afraid to turn off the radio in case he'd lose the station. Nuair nach raibh siad ag éisteach leis an radio, chlúdaigh athair é. So when they weren't listening to radio, the father would cover it, le brathnín bán with a white sheet, agla gorakig ein smooth isteach in case any smut would get into it. Bhí simúir gahar bhaig sport agus secure, so Mike's father had great interest in music and sport. Dúirt sé ciúil cún ó chuirsaí caide, sin trí ní nár cheart a scuile faoi ghian aontí mar líleanain iag ach tuirvis agus Stephen Tías. Okay, so he's saying there basically music, storytelling, or football, the 3 things you can talk about anywhere. Okay, no bhí argáintí artarthú when there would be arguments between them. Bhí máthair bhaid trína chéile, so Mike's mother was all over the place, agus í a géisiach le slithí a bhéir co-score when she was listening to games that were of the same score when they were a draw. Bhí iarthaí dul amach sa Accordion, she'd go out to the garden, agla go score all faoi cool I gcéanna Cleary in case they'd score a goal against Kerry. And it's just a reach, we chlorciol no drama Gael Gershield. So now and again there was a music programme or an Irish drama on. When she gilir Chanavas and Rodas Onavan Isuntok the Dorche. So they'd all enjoy it. So what's rare is wonderful, he'd say. Iha von hug ban corsa huertarhu. So one night, one of the neighbours visited him. Fishi the geisha to drama, they were listening to a drama, ach ni feidir leis an man but the woman couldn't hear it. Munam yok she in the hash story all, unless she could see the actors. Eri knows, anyway. Don she conan machine ashtok all, she waited to see the strange machine. Drama barely veershul, so it was an English drama on. Fishi gilerg bint sulta, so they were all enjoying it. Gitobin stopped behind her on radio, so suddenly the talking stopped on the radio. Raging badness cogwery on radio. So the woman went closer to the radio. You're near enough now, or said dinner than a hash story o sword, so said one of the actors. Liam and Vanas and got here, so the woman jumped out of her seat. Capshi got a pookie a kindly. She thought there was a ghost talking to her. Is the uncavaim share small a vig shandina ag an no an votantiach. So the biggest hobby old people had at the time was bohantiacht, which is storytelling. Tugan dina quarter na tehe ela seforosha, so people would visit the other houses of the parish. Bhí scéalta úntacha agus áráin comá, so they had great stories and songs as well. Bhí crack agus ceolacha, so they had great crack and music. Hug Fairwan dar Vanham Gray, quarter who Gominic, so one man called Gray visited often. Con a note there Sheikh Lastal to hear the news at 6. Bhí cog a career as shoe like an ounce, so the Korean War was on at the time. Bhí scéalta úntacha I Gray, so he had great stories. Near ina séna scéalta ab ar, Gadiga raibh na páistí syllabus, so he didn't tell the great stories until the kids went to bed. It's minic of Mike a geistruct ag Paul na Hockrock, so it's often that Mike was listening through a hole. Coola sé scéal green were one, so he heard a funny story once. Bhí Gray podcarty agus hiú a geistruct, so three of them were out fishing. Rug siad éasc agus bhí ochras an down our house. They got a fish and they were starving. Dish siad an éasc, they ate it. Near of plotty na fear the other men had no plates. Duration after a while, didn't Gray the hue on Reverend cup on a salak. Gray asked Hugh was the cup very dirty. Honig da Leah Vaughan or Hugh. So there was a grey white colour came in Hugh. Agus kashimach gach a rev itchege, and he threw out everything that he'd eaten, so he basically got sick. Rinna her agus mo her Mike gor chriul. So Mike's mother and father started laughing, hearty laugh. Noig, near of Gray ach cur a gale. So Gray was only making up these stories. Bhí síl bochtig Mike. Mike had a poor life. Agus a hailach and his family now. Bhí neart arán agus teacha, so even though that they had a hard life, they had plenty of tea and bread. Ócádaí specialty, so at special occasions bhí lachón muica. They had half a head of a pig, iasc, no pork on, so they had a fish or a crab. So iascach na mradon. So bhí a lán iascs na hawan stachuigadi. There was a lot of fish in the river in the 50s. The iascrocht navdlatach brawn siú like an ounce, so there was illegal fishing of salmon going on at the time. The Ergoina and Kircha out on Gahog, so people had to learn this craft from the young. Mar bhí skillina orthaig brintley, because there were certain skills coming with it. Lá bhain bhí Mike ag an owen, so one day Mike was at the river agus conna sé bradán mhór. He saw a huge salmon. Fúil sé le náthair Janine, so he called his father Janine, so he kind of hit him. Agus nina sé dófin mradán, he told him about the salmon. For Janine and Pika, he got the pike agus rug sé an mradán, and he got salmon. Bhí an bradán loide galore, so the salmon was broad. Agus bhir and Pika, and it actually broke the pike. Hit Janine stocks an owen. So the father fell into the river, agus a íochla agus a fiep in a vélige. So, and his feet, or his teeth and his pipe in his mouth. Dimmick and bradán leis. So the salmon left, agus cuid den fika fós in a gromage, with a bit of the pike still in his back. Flesk Mike mock a gore, so Mike started bursting out laughing. Ach bhí fargan down her ahar, but his dad was a rager. Honig slowra focal amach as a veil. Okay, so there was a chain of words came out of his mouth. Nor cap Mike Reeve vest a Gaelge that Mike didn't think were in Irish. Fekimi granga soul eranchin, so we see humour here. Fekimi the gavil mass morig Mike ahar, so we see that Mike has huge respect for his father. Cé an oíonn sé fine athair tá is againn go raibh brother as skill athair in one fika. So even though he was laughing at his father, we know that he's proud of his father and out of this skill, his piking skills, basically. Tá buan a cuine is Mike Doneen Ganower, so he has the gift of daydreaming. Tugan sé she is crewing beodoin an actor leis an badán, so he gives us a really clear insight into this event with the salmon. Fecht meid kma, go bhfuil ólas get Dave Muinch na hoite, so we see that he has also information about the local people. Fecht meid character Janine sa capital, so we see the character of Janine, the father, in this chapter. Tá comraderiacht either Mike agus Ahar, so this camaraderie between Mike and his father. Ní ró finnic úsáidan sé caincar, so it's not often he uses bad words. Bhí skill maga madidir leis an iascocht agus bhí siad lick, so he had good skill when it came to fishing and he was clever. So fiacan na dotíní. Bhí Mike Govlin déal dhís nuair a bhlas sé a céad cotín, so he was 12 when he tasted his first cigarette. Chana buchalí galéir, a bhí sé bliana déal dhís tobacco gná, so all the boys who were 16 at the time smoked. Woodbines and Tanama Vierhu, so that was their name. Ceap Mike go raibh an bolla hálinn, so Mike thought the smell was lovely. Dúirla Mike, ní raibh tú ide air, go dtí go raibh fag soitisteach i the veil agat. So Mike thought that you weren't a man until you had a fag in your mouth. Agus bhhalis tríle ventas, and he wanted to try it. Bhí buchal dúir bhanam Eddie Hutch, agus bhí bot de hotín a gcónaí in a fócaige. So there was one boy called Eddie Hutch, and he always had a fag bot in his pocket. Nuair chuig sé ar scoil gachló when he went to school every day. Fuair the touching own uncle, he got the cigarettes from his uncle. Your father could chuir Mike achana ar an uncle, so it wasn't long until Mike got to know the uncle. Sahar na one hook Mike court ar chach Uncle Eddie. So one Saturday Mike visited Uncle Eddie's uncle's house. Hug an túchel fag the bike, so the uncle gave Mike a fag. Bhí sé anasás an touching na cahabh, so he was delighted to be smoking. Ceap sé go raibh sé in air, he thought he was finally a man. Go tuban bhreisi a ceann na gairí éadrom, so suddenly he started feeling his head get light. Agus the scábhóga ag casa ar chéile, and the shadows like turning in on each other. Like sé ar go raibh ar dul bhaile, so he said he had to go home. For sé amach chuig bóthar in Ciúin, he ran out to a quiet road agus cá sé amach a raibh in a bholag again, and he threw up all that was in his stomach. Ní hagan cíal ravísh mar derfa, so sense doesn't come before ages, they say. Your father grabbed duals na totinega, so it wasn't long until he actually became addicted to cigarettes. Nor hill Mike arga they go bar and fair, so when he earned money working on a farm, via an targa the hort of her, he had to give the money to his mum. Near Avalon arga the cotton, they didn't have a lot of money at the time. Folly she'd na button via and Talif, so he collected the butts that were on the ground. When she'd on pop her div, August Crishy on tobacco must on stone, so he'd take the paper off them and he'd put the tobacco into a steel box. Crishy then busk on stone about at Lee, so he put the steel box into a hole in the ditch. Crishy then tobacco stig the floor then Kerryman nor vi touchinahu. So he would put the tobacco into a piece of the Kerryman newspaper when he wanted a cigarette. Conari gave the end of a so to make money at the time, deal she'd rum noch dourball and cobble. Agus chuir on Malone or na Tinkerry. So at the time to make money, he sold the tails of a horse, and they put the blame on the Tinkers. Chef de la Vieja, not Ivicha Aguida. So another thing that they would do would steal eggs. Law von hug Mike Fiar go raibh an cearc éimethe ón nead. So one day Mike actually noticed that the cock was gone, agus go raibh Ivicha istigh and that there was eggs there. Cúig sé a bhaile chun soda, mála agus pop ar all. So he went home in order to get a soda, a bag, and the paper. Tháinig sé she went back agus bhí an cearc isteach san ad, and the cock was back there. So fin an cearc piocha ma as an lena gab. Lanart Devich ars Mike. So the cock let out I don't know what you call it, a scream. And Mike said to the cock then, Lanart Devich, keep going you bitch. Rug sé ar airbal, he grabs the tail, agus cashi machas an yadi and threw it out of the nest. Agus tóg sé na huvacha and he took the eggs. Cúig sé grí an Uchterlin, he went to the creamery, agus síl siad na huvacha leis an store, and he sold the eggs to the manager. Cúpla le in dhéag sin thug an banisteó cuairt theach Mike, so a couple of days after that, the manager visited Mike's house. Elaine McCree, his heart jumped. Rinne Mike iirecht é lú, so Mike tried to escape. Bhí feargar maniscóir mar bhí na sicíní fós na hivica, so the manager was angry because there was still chickens in the eggs. Bhí ahar Mike buile, so Mike's dad was raging. Dúirt Mike gur ceannach sé chocolate agus sweets and on a tobacco, so he said he bought chocolate and sweets instead of tobacco. Dimming sé he left. Nor déal sé bhaile dúirt a bhar leis gur raibh súilecha gur fálam sé ceacht. So when he arrived back, his mother said that she hoped that he had learned a lesson. So dríocht an ceol. Hahan an bosca ceol Mike, so he loved the accordion. Níos mó ná léasar be eile, more than any other instrument. Bhí chlór balladí agus ceol tradiisiúnta an radio nó bhí sé óg, so there was also a ballads program and traditional music on the radio when he was young. Ní raibh tape recorder dhéine ach bhí gramophone ag dtíine ortha, so there was no tape recorder but there was a gramophone because some people had one. Bhí seansig Mike ceol an chlostal tar éis afran an domhnach, so there was a chance for Mike to listen to music after Mass on Sunday ar an móthra on the road to even the teach Sean O'Donnell outside Sean O'Donnell's house. Soir ceol tuair aber Sean, so he was a great musician. Bhí dríocht ag buint leis an stíle bhí aige, so there was magic coming with his style. Cheann sé Maoirse Queen and Norris Frannan, so he played with Marsh, and ceoltóir cumasach Abbey freshen, so he was also a really talented musician. Agus bhí ceol in a chosaige cumálan an got, so he had music in his feet as well as his voice. Lá bhán bhí Mike agus Drahar Paddy le chéile, so one day Mike and his brother Paddy were together. Dinis Paddy scéaldó fin geoltóir a bhí tagtha bhaile ó Sasana. So Paddy told him a story about a musician who had just come home from England. Bhí an fear seo in ann an dá rose ar mosca ceol a cheannim le chéile, so this man could play the two rows on the accordion together. But bhaile Mike bosca ceol a bheith aige, he wanted an accordion. Dúirt Paddy go raibh hónar double row le foil ar Cox of Kilcock ar an radio. So Paddy said that there was a double row Horner accordion available in Cox of Kilcock ar gá funte for £12. De agus réal. Heol Mike later gear a brochure, so Mike sent him a letter looking for a brochure. Tháinig an brochure agus ronig Mike agus Paddy bosca. Tróna a bhain bhí ahar Mike amach ag bohantíach, so one afternoon Mike's father was out telling stories. A leabhar Mike agus Paddy le na máthair, so they spoke to his mum. Dinne she dí fin mosca. They told her about the box. They think she argued the horto, so she agreed to give them money. The author son down her who they were delighted. Where Mike a gall off he Mike put his two arms around her. Cúpla lá ní sin, a couple of days after that, Valig Mike and Bosca Hewlin a gaifig on fished, so he collected the accordion in the post office. Cuig Mike a whalia, Mike went home agus doscail sé and he opened it. Fi go hall and it was beautiful. Cuir sin na snurpy trasna ar Hewlin, so he put the straps around his elbows. Husig sé Shename, he started playing it, ach ní raibh moran ceolaga ag an am, there wasn't much music at the time. Honnig ahar a whalia agus husig sé Shenam, so the father came home and started playing. Bhí una ar bhaid go raibh cúpla nóta aige, so Mike was surprised he had a couple of notes. Cheann sé porta bhranam an bóthar ó chuaigh controlí. So he played a tune called The Road Down to Tralee. Bhí una ar bháthair Mike go raibh porta aige, so Mike's mother was also surprised that he had a tune. Hosig Mike ag déanamh cleachta, so Mike started practicing, agus níor bhada go raibh porta aige, it wasn't long until he had a tune. But dinín leichan híthe seo gone out. Okay, so Mike's dad was the hero of the night without doubt. Bhí Mike agus Paddy le cleachta an tamar fad, so they were both practicing the whole time. Lá bhán bhí máthair Mike ag caint le Sean Collin, so one day Mike's mom was talking to Sean, and fear bhí ag Shenam sna Holly Moore in Chicago, so the man who was playing in the big halls in Chicago. Dinne she fin Muska knew it though, so she told him about the lad's new accordion. Hug she queer stopped, she gave him an invite in. Hosig sé Shenam agus bhí sé go húntaach, so he started playing and he was great. Bhí Mike ar neamh le bunas an ceol, so Mike was in heaven with the sweetness of the music. Hug sé nodan at the bike, so he gave tips to Mike. Bhí Mike ar bhealach chuna bheith in a ceoltóir féin, so Mike was on his way to being his own musician. So cabal le seacht a bóthar melansa. But bhela gach tiis móthir gan múntóirí a dhéanamh dá chlán, so all the parents at the time wanted to make teachers out of their family. Bhí suúlaigh tiismóirí Mike gnéanaigh sé an scrúdú chun dul isteach go dtí an cláiste olbhúcháin. Okay, so Mike's parents wanted him to do the exam in order to get into the preparation college. Bhí siad gcónaí ag curbrú ar chachtainna dhéanamh, so they were always putting pressure on him to do his lessons. Bhí Mike ag gcónaí ag sinam an bosc éón na clachtainna a dhéanamh, so he was always playing the accordion instead of doing his lessons. Lig sé go raibh sé gobar go dtíon, so he let on that he was doing very hard work. Dúirt a bháthair leis an sin a bheith olabhú le dul go dtí céard scoil an daingan, so his mother said then to prepare to go to the céard scoil an daingan. Ní raibh sim dul ag Mike sna leabhar, so he had no interest in books. Bhí siar sin aige dul ag obair mar ar an muir, so he wanted to go working as a farmer. Dair go bháthair an a chrusta leis, so his mom was raging with him. Dúirt she go méid sé ina scabhlaí nó ina spalpín fánach. She said that he'd be a slave or a wandering labourer. Tomlin níag sin chuir sé ceistir bhuacail, so after a while he questioned the boy, agus duine sé nach raibh an céard scoil códána sa ceap sé. And he actually told him that the céard scoil wasn't as bad as what he thought. Bheadh sé an siúnéireachta elam, he'd be able to learn carpentry. Geall sé go minic sé tríolas an céard scoil ar feadh bliana, so he promised that he would try it for a year. Fuair sé siamh ó sean bhanger go dtí an tech, so he got a lift from an old banger to the tech. Bhí an céard scoil defriúil ón sean scoil, so it was different to his old school. Bhí binshí bratha aimid sa seomar ranga, so there was lovely wooden benches in the classrooms, agus bus galán de irla sí siúnéire, and boxes full of carpentry instruments. Duine sin príomhide Tomás Coffey go mag gá bhlianacha le holbhúd an grúpa tastas. So the principal, Thomas, said that they'd have 2 years to prepare for the group cert. Lá a bhain chuig grúpa go dtí Thig vai cín fuacht. So one day they went to the pub, mai cín fuacht. Bhí fear beag taobhfhiar den counter ag deisiú bróga, so there was one man behind the counter cleaning shoes. Beléir go bhfuin Mike Keane an tean of as cuideachla na Nina Oga, so it's clear that Mike Keane really enjoyed young people. Is minic a host she court though, so it's often that he gave them an invite to visit him. Bhí lá chud Deirdín. So they had a half day on a Thursday, agus Jimmer sheet le Hakaja, and they'd play football. Bhí Mike Keane buin tean of as a Hamel secure scoil, so he was really enjoying his time in the tech. Bhí na glory das that the students were nice, agus bhí sé gobar le na lábha, and he was working with his hands. Bhí Ross má bhóga ar siú le an am. Okay, so there was a race on at the time. Glach Mike agus a chuir deport to Ross, so they took part in it, agus bhíog nor bhuaigh siad an Ross, and they actually won it. Mína hána néidir chuige seacht thosaigh an comórtas idir cúndé peldas na céard scoilena. So in November, the intercounty football for the tech started. Bhí cuaig chuine dhéag ar an bheireann, so there was 15 on the team agus gá subs. Dúirt Mike nach raibh siad an ann bhreathar na subs, so Mike said they couldn't rely on the subs. Bhuaigh siad an céad lethe in Onan Curie, so they actually won the first game, which was against Kerry Island. Lan siad ar oid go dtí an cléithe ceannis, they went all the way to the final. Tar éis cléithe crua bhuaigh siad an cléithe, so after a hard game they won. But in céadúir a bhuaigh céard scoil an daingan Crave an Cúnta, so that was the first time the Tech and Dingle won the county. Bhí Killuar an Marcus sa scoil, so they had a great celebration, a huge one. Tar éis sin after that rinne siad an group tastas, they did the group cert. Bhí a lá neighbour le déanamh acu tar éis na dlithe cadde, so they did a lot of work after the football game. Dairigh le gach duine sa scrúdú, so everyone passed, agus bhí áthas an donarthú, and they were all delighted. Deir Michael go nígarbh iad na gábhlíon at fear bhí aige, so Mike could always say it was the best 2 years he had. Cuir taithí sa céard scoil ar bhóthar lasa é. So the experience he got from the tech put him on the road. Nor tháinig saoir néideag chuig a hocht, bhí Mike chuig bliana déirthaí, she was now 15, agus bhí also ar féin aige, he had his own razor. Bhí na cuasaí gaeilge ag tosú sa counter, so the Irish courses were starting in the area. Bhí either 3 agus ceracades galore ar na courses, there was between 300 and 400 people, students at the course. Bhí céilí beag ar siúil gachíne, or gachíthe, so there was a small céilí every night, agus bhí céilí mór ar siúil ar an luan céidín agus ina, and a big céilí on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Bhí ceadig muintear na háite dulgadí na céile a beagas ar an aisce, so the people of the area could go to the small céilís free, ach bhí 2 shilling áíoch ar na céile móra, but they'd pay 2 shillings for the big céilís. Bhí an tá leis go raibh sé an am an bosca héanam, so he was lucky he could play the accordion. Fuair sé postig sinam den na céilí beaga, so he got a job playing for the small céilís. Bhí sé ag obair airm le na athair ag an am, so he's working on the farm with his dad at the time. Ní raibh simigus in obair, he had no interest in the work, agus bhí differ a bhailiar, he wanted to go home. Cuir a athair ceiste cá raibh sé dul, so his father asked him where was he going. Dúirt Mike go raibh sé ag dul ag Shanna Mahal in Murky, so Mike said he was going to play in the hall. Cuir Mike brilliantine in a chuid gruige nor bhí sé dul go dtí na céilinte. That's like gel or wax. So he put it in his hair when he was going to the Keeleys. Ráigh Mike go dtí na céile lena bhosca sa bhascéid, so Mike could cycle to the Keeleys with his accordion in the box. Nuair chunig na scalóirí an bosca, thug siad búla bosto, so when the students saw the accordion, they gave him a clap. Fálaí limní an céad rinca cheann siad, so the Waltz and Limerick was the first dance that he played. Bhí long Colleen there was a lot of girls there, agus bhí Mike ar bhuin Mecca, he was delighted. Bhí na Colleen ar haomh bhána hala, agus na buachlaí ar haomh eile, so the girls were on one side of the hall and the boys were on the other side. Bhí Mike beagání bortha mar ní raibh sé ábalta Colleen all ar an stoite, so Mike was kind of worried because he wasn't able to get a woman on the stage. Shan waltz bhí don dara rinca, so it was an old waltz for the second dance. Ní raibh aon bhíl ar bhuachlaí dul amach ar an orlór, so the boys weren't going out on the floor. Thug Mike bar Colleen fiar sa cuine. Okay, so Mike knows two girls in the corner. Agus duine ag fécin dearú an go home, and one of them looking at him from time to time. Bhí suaile gurma aici agus gruig ada, so she had blue eyes and long hair. Cuireadh the gá siúlar as i the cheann agus creighting an waltz a door moonta across the leis, so put those two eyes back in your head and finish the waltz, one of the teachers said to him. Taréis an rinca after the dance, cuir Mike ceistir Colleen dar bhanam Eileen dul amach ar date, so he actually asked Eileen out on a date. Bhí buachal dahúil sa counter. There was a handsome boy in the area. Sean Moore O'Donnell ab anam dó, so Big Sean O'Donnell was his name. Thosig sé caint le Eileen agus ag rincile, so he started talking to Eileen and dancing with her. Bhí éasig Mike gur ag iarra é a chrá bhí sé, so Mike knew that he was trying to take her. Luig Eileen Bhí éasig Mike gur ag iarra é a chrá, so he was trying to upset Mike basically. Luig Eileen a suaile ar bhaith an tam ar fad, so Eileen kept putting her eyes on Mike, agus bhí éasig go raibh sé ag iarfós, and Mike knew that he was doing okay. Díreach Sean Moore churn ar bhaith, okay? So Sean Moore turned his back to Mike, ag ligan ar go raibh farragar, knowing that Mike was raging. Taréis an rinca bhí ar na scalóirí dul ar ais go dtí an Lóistín Loireach. So after the dance, the students had to go back to accommodation immediately. Mar bhí lé rollas na tithe raibh a héindio go clog because there was a roll call in the houses at 11. Suas leis go dtí d'ars go tapa, so up to the door he went fast. Bhí Eileen ag feitheamh leis, she was waiting for him. Cuir sé lámh timpeall léirthaí agus hiúil siad, so he put his arm around her and they walked. Dúirt sí nach raibh mór an Gaeilge. She said she didn't have a lot of Irish, agus dúirt Mike lé go mbeadh neart Gaeilge sulla meid an course a heart, so he said to her that she would have better Irish before the course to be over. Quick, she's so bothery and cat stairs and shin, so they went up the road, agus bhí sé cosúla Shorty Connell a cúplaí ag Curthaíocht, and it was like O'Connell Street with a couple courting. Fuair siad am áid compórda, they got a comfortable place. Near Inish Mike had a and shin, so Mike never said what happened then. Bhí áthas an domhan ar bhaith go bhfuair sin Colleen, so he was delighted he got a girl. An lánaí ag sin, chuig Mike go dtí an Céilí, so the day after that Mike went to the Céilí, agus bhí cúpla rinca gaile Eileen, he had a couple of dances with Eileen. Bhí Sean Moore on freshen, so Big Sean was there too. Bhí sé an he was very cold. Bhí coat a Sean fós he's still in his coat on. Dír sé ar bhaith dul go dtí an lethras chun an scéal a bhí knew though, so he asked Mike to go to the toilet to explain the story to him. Bhí pull mór a gúla léna, so he had a big hole in the back of his top. Bhí mí úntach ag Mike le Eileen. Okay, so Mike was delighted with Eileen. Bhí údnas ar bhaith ag an ihe dearnach, so Mike was lonely at the last night. Beach Eileen ag dul bhaile, she'd be going home. Thug she a seola though, she gave him her address. Cuir sé ceistir he came out to Lóistín a raibh a shomer, so he asked her what place in the accommodation was her room. Bhí plan aige, he had a plan. But bhalis cuairta huirtíar he wanted to visit her. Yoig sé dreamer, he'd get a ladder agus rocky sé suas and he'd go up. Taréis an rolla for Mike and Dreamer, so after the roll call, Mike got to the ladder. But bhá Colleen lena char Eamon come so he wanted a girl for his friend Eamon as well. Thosig siad ag drapa, they started climbing. Tháinig buachal ar rothair, so a boy came on a bike agus thosig siad ag bécha and they started roaring. Tháinig banantí amach agus farrag an downarthaí, so the woman of the house came out and she was raging. Rug she ar bike, she grabbed Mike agus bhuail she Mike le scoop and she hit him with a brush. Nuair bhuail sé le Eamon, bhí sé ag brise chuí a goir, so when he met Eamon, he was breaking his heart laughing. Cuir sé ceistir bhaith an raibh siad ag dul ar ais, so he asked Mike was he going back. Dúirt Mike nach raci sé ras domach Elizabeth Taylor feitheamh leis. So Mike said he would not go back as long as Elizabeth Taylor is waiting for him. So ceis na scrúdathe bunathe ar an acrama. So I gohíle sinnéideach sa díorhhaisné sé ignátétarm, tug an maitinín cúnta spéisiúil dúin ar 8 óige, agus ar chéile bhhaintear an nuair bhí sé ag fásta níos sa Gaeltacht agus é sin a phlé. So sa cesin, you're basically just talking about all of the events of the acrama, okay? So the main events. Okay, so it would be like on Kigra, you'd have on Aram agus na Hivacha, okay, on Busky Kuel. It's all about his, basically you'd be talking about the acrama, okay? Govila sa séideach, tug an maitanín cúntas anna teanamhach dúin ar an tréise chaise ag ggheardscoil an dagan, so when he spent time in the Techen dingle, agus ar saoir na bbliana 1958, so and the summer in 1958, so when he was ag Shenam ag na hithe or ag na céilethe, etc. Okay, so sin é bunathe an capital seo bunathe ar Porta Héan de Hignátéir, so gurb míle maithagh ó Grade Academy.